Once upon a time, there was a girl. She was a sad girl, and she lived with her father in a beautiful mansion deep in the woods. They were far away from the cities and castles, on a lonely road between one tiny village and another tiny village. The girl was as lonely as the road, though she'd never complain. She was unable to speak, unable to sing, unable even to smile, it seemed. Her father was worried about her constantly, of course. He had made plenty of money in his time as a merchant, and he used it on all the best healers he could find. They came and went, mystified and useless. The only one who helped at all was an old woods witch. She read the faint lines on the girl's palm and hummed to herself, sucking at her toothless gums. "The girl has been cursed," she said. "She won't be happy again until she laughs, and she won't laugh again until, well, I can't even say." The father wasn't sure he believed in curses, but he was willing to try anything. He brought in jesters and jokers, comedians and jugglers. He brought in a whole circus, and when the lion nipped the lion tamer, the entire village laughed, but not the girl. Nothing, it seemed, could make her laugh. So let's leave her alone in her mansion for a time. She's used to it, after all. Now, in the nearby village, there lived a boy named Jack with his old mum. They were as poor as the merchant was rich. Mum spent all day spinning and weaving and cleaning and managed to earn a few measly coins to keep them fed. Jack, a strong and healthy boy, was generally too careless to do anything helpful. In the summer, he would spend his afternoons daydreaming on the sunny side of a hill. In the winter, he would do the same by the fireplace in their cozy cottage. This went until one day, his mum couldn't take it anymore. "Jack, you get up right now," she said. "You go out and find some work, and don't come home until you've earned your own dinner." Now, that may seem harsh, but Jack was more than old enough to work, and she had let him be lazy for far, far too long. "All right, Mum," Jack said. "I'll go out right now." He smiled happily and went into the village to find some work. In an old village like that, people could always use an extra hand, so Jack soon found work helping a farmer. He spent an afternoon pulling up weeds and hauling them to a pile. It was hard work that made his hands blister, but Jack knew his old mum was serious. At the end of the day, the farmer gave him a shiny penny for his efforts. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy a few meals. Jack walked home, flipping the coin and catching it again. On the way, he had to cross over a little stream. If he had been thinking, he would have been careful with the coin, but he was careless as always. He flipped it extra high and missed his catch. The coin plinked off the little bridge and disappeared into the stream. "Whoops," said Jack, and then he kept walking home. When he arrived, his mom asked him if he had managed to find some work. "I did," said Jack, "but I was flipping the coin and I dropped it in the stream." "Jack, you can't keep being so careless. Next time, put it in your pocket." "Next time, that's what I'll do," agreed Jack. So the next morning, Jack once more went out to find some work. This time, he ended up at a dairy farmer who had him hauling feed. At the end of the day, he gave Jack a jar of fresh cream for his trouble. Of course, Jack remembered what his old mum had told him and put it right in his pocket. If he had been more thoughtful, he would have realized that cream and a coin were very different. But he was careless as always. When he got home, of course, the cream had spilled out all over his pants. "Jack!" his mum cried. "A pocket is no place for a jar of milk. Next time, carry it on your head like the milkmaids. Please don't be so careless." "Yes, Mum, of course," Jack said. And the next day, he went back to the dairy farm, and this time he helped wax some cheese wheels. At the end of the day, the woman gave him a big wedge of fresh, creamy cheese. Jack remembered what his mom said and immediately set off for home, the cheese balanced on his head. Of course, a head is no place for creamy cheese, and by the time he got home, it was melted into his hair and totally ruined. "Jack, please be more careful," his mom said desperately. "You should have carried the cheese carefully in your hands out of the sun." "I'll be more careful tomorrow, Mum," Jack said. "I promise." The next day, Jack thought he'd try his luck somewhere else. He went to the baker and spent the day kneading lumps of dough until his arms ached. It wasn't fun work, but he found it easy to daydream during it, so it wasn't all that bad. Plus, the baker kept cats to keep away the mice. Jack liked cats, and at the end of the day, the baker paid him by giving Jack a big tomcat. Jack remembered the cheese from yesterday and kept the cat nice and close to his chest. Unfortunately, that's not really the way cats like to be held. All the way home, the cat yowled and hissed and scratched and bit until Jack was forced to drop it. The cat darted away as soon as it hit the ground, and Jack arrived home empty-handed and all scraped and scratched up. "Jack, you can't be so careless," his mother said again. "These things are different. A cat isn't cheese. You should have put it on a leash and a collar and walked it home." "Of course," Jack said. "That makes perfect sense. I'll remember that for next time." The next time was tomorrow, when Jack decided to go and work for the butcher. He loved a good roast, but found the butcher shop to be a little dark and stinky. The butcher had him working in the back, trimming fat off of roasts and then weighing them out for customers. It was probably his worst job yet, but the pay was definitely the best. At the end of the day, the butcher gave Jack an entire shoulder of mutton. It was a huge piece of meat and would easily last Jack and his mom the rest of the week. He started to hold it close to his chest and then remembered what his mom had said. He borrowed some small rope and made a little leash that he had tied around the mutton. Sure it was secure, Jack walked home, dragging the meat behind him like a wild dog. Of course, by the time he got back to his mom, the meat was near completely ruined. "Jack, not again," she said. "A leash is for a cat, not some mutton. How can you be so careless? You need to think things through. Carry mutton on your shoulder, away from the ground." Jack nodded. He was starting to feel bad now. He was careless, but he wasn't mean. He just didn't think. He'd be sure to be better tomorrow. The next morning, he went to work again, this time helping out a rancher. He mucked stables and threw hay and ran water all day. He got pushed by a mule and bit by a horse and even nibbled by a pony, but he worked until near sunset. The rancher said that Jack had done such a good job that he was going to give him an extra payment. He had an old mule who was too tired for farm work, but plenty healthy for a little work around a house. Jack took him with a big smile. On the way home, he remembered what his mother had said. He hauled the mule up and put it on his shoulders. That way, it would definitely be safe. He continued on, mule across his back, wobbling and hee-hawing with every stuttered step. Now, remember the girl from the beginning of the story? The one who couldn't be happy until she laughed? Well, the road that Jack took home every day went right by her big house tucked away in the woods. She would spend a lot of her days sitting at her window, gazing out at the world, waiting for something, anything that might make her smile. She first saw Jack walking home flipping a coin. That had been interesting, but not particularly notable. But the next day, she saw him walking home with cream spilling out of his pocket. That was a little sillier, and the corner of her mouth actually gave a twitch. After that, she saw Jack pass by with a big piece of cheese on his head. It was melting in the sun and stuck all through his hair, and it was such a ridiculous sight that she smiled. It was just once, and only for a second, but it was her first smile in all her life, and it seemed to bring color back to her skin, shine to her hair, and light to her eyes. Next, she saw him carrying the cat, all yowling and scratching. That made her worried for a bit, but when it leapt up and got away, the smile came back. And when she saw him dragging the roast behind him on a leash, she gave a breath that could have been a laugh and her widest smile yet. And finally, when she saw Jack coming home, a hee-hawing donkey draped across his shoulders, she couldn't help herself. A chuckle slipped out, just a small one, but that seemed to break the spell. The chuckle grew into a great belly laugh and a smile so wide her cheeks hurt. Her father came in to find her laughing and smiling, and he was so happy he whooped and swept her up into his arms. "You can laugh," he said. "I can," she said. "And you can talk." "I can," she agreed, and they laughed and danced around the room in celebration. The father ran out and grabbed Jack, telling him that he didn't know it, but he had done him a great service. What would he like for a reward? "Well," said Jack, "me mum just wants me to bring home dinner once in a while." "One dinner? My boy, for saving my daughter, you'll never want for dinner again." And he was true to his word. From that day on, every evening, a basket of food would be delivered from the mansion to Jack's house. And during the day, Jack would visit the formerly silent girl often, and the sound of their laughter could be heard all through the forest. The end.